So, in the first chapter, he makes out a case for morality being what?
A way of arbitrating between conflicting interests.
Yes! But then he goes on to claim that this is inadequate in itself, doesn't he? Well, does he or doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
I'm glad there's at least one con man amongst you. And what does he say is needed as well? I wish I could be so concise. Hasn't anybody read this besides me?
I didn't get quite that far.
Quite that far? I'm talking about page 17, the beginning of chapter 2. If you didn't make it that far, don't ever try War and Peace. But did anybody else get quite that far? Has anybody read any of this book? Has anybody read the reading list where it tells you to read this book? Has anybody read the syllabus where it tells you to read the reading list? Can anybody read? Show off. It's intellectuals like you that have ruined the world. All right, then let's get back to the point in question. Why is our definition of morality as a way of arbitrating between conflicting interests inadequate? What does it lack? Oh, come on, it's a one-word answer. It's only 2 syllables, so you should be able to manage it. Most of you, anyway. I'll give you a clue. It begins with I. Oh, hello. Could I leave a message for Mrs. Finn, please? It's Mr. Finn here. Has 5 letters. Could you just tell her that, as expected, I won't be home until tomorrow? Second letter, D. Rhymes with meal.
Ideal.
Very good. Yes, that's right. Thank you very much. Bye. I hope my phoning didn't distract you too much. It was a little piece of marital business, the forgetting of which would have had limited but catastrophic consequences. Well, ideals, yes. Do any examples spring to mind? Well, if they don't exactly spring, do any limp into view?
Communism?
Yes! If you're a Russian. You know where Russia is, don't you? That's the place where they start races by saying, on your marks. On your marks? No wonder music hall is dead.
What would you regard as an ideal?
Would you believe a class in which everyone had read what he should have read? No, perhaps not. That would be worse than no one having read anything at all. I think a short-term ideal might be to terminate these proceedings. Oh, for next week, though, before you reluctantly tear yourselves away, next week I want to discuss whether ideals can be of absolutely anything. For example, some people, as you suggested, claim that the conversion of the world to communism would be an ideal state of affairs, while other people, like my mother, are concerned to see that unmarried youths of different sexes don't copulate all over the place, simply because they hold an ideal of how human beings should act, and this kind of random mating is excluded by it. Anyway, I'll leave you with that profound thought. And don't forget the reading lists. They're not as bad as you think, you know. Could I have a word with you, Miss McKenna?
Certainly, Mr. Finn.
It's just that I thought your last essay had certain stylistic defects. Admittedly, there were some things about it that I liked. And for example, your breasts, your thighs, and all your other lovable parts.
Look, Jonathan, I haven't much time. I have another class to go to.
Nobody rushes to my classes. Why should you rush to anybody else's?
Other people think things like that matter. And that was naughty of you ringing your wife like that in front of everybody.
It was my sly way of showing you, my darling, what I was really thinking about.
Well, you shouldn't have been. What time are you picking me up tonight, then?
I'll be round in my Ford Chariot at, 5 o'clock. No, make that 6. Then we'll get there about 8. So The sort of hotels I'm used to staying in have bred in me an aversion to arriving earlier. Everybody's using the hot water, and you're lucky if you get a thin trickle.
Where are we going? What hotel? Where?
It's a secret.
But how am I supposed to know what to pack?
Oh, you'll get it right. But we dress for dinner, if that's any help. Otherwise, it can be very painful if you spill the soup.
All right, Jonathan, but there's really no need to be so mysterious.
But I thought it was my essentially enigmatic Jekyll and Hyde personality that you found irresistible.
I must fly.
Respectable academic, teacher of youth, member of the Aristotelian Society, transforming himself each evening as lighting up time approaches into a primitive animal lusting after you. Do try and get your essays in on time, Miss McKenna. Your oral work may be satisfactory, but it's not enough in itself, you know.
Thank you, Mr. Finn.
My pleasure, Miss McKenna.
Oh, Mr. Finn.
Ah, Miss Vicky.
Your appointment's here.
Hmm?
Mr. Johns.
Christ!
Well, I thought I'd better mention it before I sent him in case you'd forgotten.
Thank God you did. He rang up yesterday, didn't he?
Yes, and made an appointment. He's waiting in my office.
How does he look? I mean, is he angry or worried or cheerful or what?
I really didn't notice. He didn't say very much.
Well, you better show him in, Miss Dickin. I'm undoubtedly here. Not even as a philosopher can I deny that. But, could you tell him that I have a class in phenomenology in, let's say, 15 minutes?
Yes, Mr. Finn.
Yeah, 15 minutes. And otherwise, I'd be delighted to see him.
Yes, Mr. Finn.
Come in, James, come in. Hello, James. This is a pleasant surprise.
A surprise? I did telephone.
Oh, that is to say, an unusual occurrence, but of course I was expecting you. In fact, I've been turning dozens of eager young disciples away from my door so that I might be free.
I hope I haven't come at a bad time.
Any time would be a bad time, James. Well, that is to say, I'm always busy, but never too busy to see you.
I'm afraid I'm here on rather a serious matter.
My time is yours, James, for as long as you wish.
Thank you. I was told we only had 15 minutes.
Pardon?
Your secretary said you had a class in 15 minutes.
Really? Well, I could have sworn that... What day is it today?
Wednesday.
Oh! Damn. She's right, then. So I've got a group of first years who are really vets or chemists or something who have to learn some philosophy in order to broaden what passes for their minds, but... Well, perhaps I could put them off. That is, if you wanted to talk to me about something really important.
Oh, well, I had rather hoped I wouldn't be interfering with your work.
Now, perhaps I ought to see them, even if they do think that Plato is a cartoon dog.
Well, to get straight to the point, then, since we seem to have very little time, I'm here because of certain confidences made to me by Janet.
Janet?
Your wife.
Your sister?
My sister.
Ah, that's Janet.
I've just come from seeing her this morning, as a matter of fact.
Oh, come to think of it, she did mention something about your calling round, but, well, she was filling a child with cornflakes at the time. You know, the sort of scene. I was concentrating on stopping my coffee cup rattling too much in its saucer. We don't communicate too much at that hour.
She said as much.
Oh, something developed since I left home. She's had a baby. House caught fire. Baby caught fire. Or did I forget to bring my sandwiches in my Tupperware box?
I'd rather like to be serious, if you don't mind, Jonathan.
You mean you'd like us both to be?
You made it quite clear we have very little time, and I'd like to use it profitably, without arguing on silly points.
Argue, James? You know I never argue. I am a philosophe, unmoved by emotion, unaffected by urges to do damage and cause blood to flow. I am ruled by sweet reason.
I've taken it upon myself to come here.
Socrates, you know, once stood for 3 days in snow and ice, so lost was he in thought. I once went 24 hours without urinating, but that was more of a medical affair.
Jonathan, please don't mock me. You must know what's worrying Janet.
A Scout's honour, not a clue. Unless it's about Broads.
Broads?
Yes, the Norfolk Broads. She wants us to have a holiday there this summer, in a boat. She says they have them with colour television and showers now. Doesn't it sound lovely?
For God's sake.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I do apologize. I forgot you don't like boats. You get seasick or something, don't you?
I can only take it you know exactly what I've come here about, and you're just being silly to prolong the conversation until your students arrive and I will have to leave.
I could prove you wrong, but I won't.
Pardon?
Doesn't matter.
Jonathan, please. I'm here for Janet's sake as well as yours.
That's very noble of you, James.
She knows all about your affair with this girl. This Iris girl. And she's very worried. She thinks this time it may be serious. I believe she even imagines that you might end up, well, leaving her.
And my dear wife couldn't have told me all this herself. Man to man.
Well, you said yourself you don't communicate.
Oh, yes, but that's in the stodgy time before breakfast, often in the evening with our sensibilities fully tuned. We can communicate with devastating efficiency. I mean, one night, would you believe it? One night, when we were alone and silent in our house, with our offspring upstairs sleeping, she simply burst into tears, with not a word said. She said it was because of what I was thinking. Because of what I was thinking.
Well, anyway, I thought something should be said. I'm sorry, but...
Then what's all this about this time? What do you mean, this time it would seem to be serious?
Well, she seemed to think there had been others.
But she didn't mind.
Didn't mind?
Well, you gave the impression that it was the seriousness
Oh, I see.
rather than the affair itself.
Well, I call that rather an academic point.
Yes, well, then I am an academic person.
A moral philosopher, they tell me.
That's not the same as a priest, you know. Or perhaps you don't. I remember how amused you were when you learnt that your sister was marrying a philosopher. Yeah, what was it you said? Won't he philosophize us all? You didn't even know what it meant. However, I suppose that from an adult point of view, one licensed fool is much the same as another.
Look, I am here for Janet's sake. Couldn't we talk about her rather than about yourself all the time?
If only I sold safety razor blades or motor insurance, you wouldn't feel you could come barging in here like this to give me a good telling off.
The telephone's ringing.
I was ignoring it. I thought that sort of mild eccentricity was allowed, even expected. Yes. Would you like a drink?
Oh, well,
Hemlock? I mean coffee?
Unless you'd rather I went now. I don't see much point in...
Yes, two, please.
And what about your impending class?
Forget the class, there isn't one.
But your secretary
Oh,
said...
she's a raving lunatic. Not to be trusted. She's not really my secretary either. She's what we call in the trade a departmental secretary. That means we all share a bit of her. So I've never been quite sure which bit I've got. I suppose you have a secretary all of your very own. We occasionally hear rumors, you know, of the great outside world. But in our little monastery here, we lead a primitive life. Gruel at midday, quill pens, one secretary between five of us.
Thank you. I didn't know whether Mr. Johns would want it white or black, so I brought the milk separately.
Your logic is impeccable, Miss Dickin.
Thank you.
And would you like milk, James?
Yes, please.
Milk, please, Miss Dickin.
Thank you.
And would you like sugar, James?
Yes, please.
Sugar, please, Miss Dickin.
How much?
Oh, yes, how much? 1 lump, 3 heaped teaspoonfuls, or 100 weight?
1 teaspoonful, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Dickin.
Thank you.
Well, where were we?
Well,
Oh,
you,
yes, I was doing my academic at bay bit, wasn't I?
Yes, you were, rather.
You must forgive me for losing my temper. Most of the conversations I have in this room are on a rather different basis from this one. I'm not used to being criticized.
I hardly expected to be received with open arms.
No. Anyway, now that we've got some coffee and we're sitting here like jolly good chaps, let's consider the facts of the case. How much do you know?
Everything.
Everything?
Well, I think, anyway.
But how? I mean, I may not be the most discreet person in the world, but I don't go around exposing myself in public, not in any sense of the phrase. Nor am I followed by a bevy of reporters who record my every emission of wind. So who told you?
It doesn't really matter.
Oh, come on, do tell. I promise not to become enraged or even ruffled.
Well, I suppose you deserve to know. I hired a private detective. I hired a private detective.
A private detective? An authentic brown mat sleuth? Where'd you get them from?
The Yellow Pages.
He's been following me around, listening into my telephone calls, checking my mail.
Well, I don't know exactly...
Can't I sue you for this? I don't worry, not that I will. But I can't help being impressed by your sense of the melodramatic, though. I mean, I can imagine you're engaging solicitors by the truckful, but a private detective is something else altogether. I tell you what, James, I mean, whatever the outcome of our little discussion is, let him carry on, eh? I mean, let him go on shadowing me, and let's see if I can spot him.
It wasn't just a game, you know.
One day I would casually but purposefully lead him into Marks and Spencer's. Using the polished surface of my cigarette lighter to check that his brown brogues were still hot on my trail, I would chain-smoke my way over to the underwear counter, and while pretending to be absorbed in a pair of puce Y-fronts, I would suddenly throw myself backwards, grasp him by the throat, and cry, "You are Lobby Ludd, and I claim my £10.
I'm very grateful to you for taking this so well, Jonathan, but could we get back to the matter in hand?
Well, I was hoping we could forget about that.
Would I be right in saying that you're planning to go away with this girl?
No! As if it's any business of yours.
Not even for a weekend?
Yes! You should have been a barrister, James. The way you press on manfully to the truth despite my shifty evasions.
Well, can I ask you not to do it, Jonathan? For Janet's sake.
I suppose you deserve an answer, considering all the expense you've been put to.
Don't be facetious.
Well, I mean, your average private eye can't come at much less than 50 quid a week, can it? There's all the magnifying glasses to buy, for one thing.
Are you leaving my sister?
For not more than 36 hours.
So, it's no more than a dirty weekend.
Well, slightly stained.
And how do you expect Janet to feel while this is going on?
James, my calm so far has been a tribute to my profession. Don't push your luck.
I don't understand you.
If it wasn't for my liberal education and the fact that you're considerably bigger than I am, I'd have thrown you out of here long ago.
I've got to know what you're going to do.
You get out.
I am not leaving.
Get out! Yes! Yes!
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm afraid the class has been cancelled. Miss Fotheringay.
Pardon?
No class. I'm busy, and I've had to postpone the class.
Excuse me, I may be very wrong
And
here.
would you close the door as you go out? Thank you, as you go out.
Is it Miss McKenna?
It is.
Miss Fotheringay is a student of mine, but the class has been cancelled today, dear. Cancelled.
Miss Iris McKenna.
Yes, that's right.
Well, perhaps you care to join us, would you, Miss McKenna, as the matter we're discussing very much concerns you.
As you go out, dear, could you close the door? No class today, class cancelled.
Jonathan, would you mind telling me what this is all about?
Oh, God.
My name is Johns. Since it seems that my brother-in-law is not going to introduce us.
Hello.
No, don't say a word to him.
He is your brother-in-law?
Oh, yes, he's the brother of my wife, blood of the same blood, flesh of the same flesh. Don't listen to a word he says.
I realise this can't be very pleasant for you,
Such consideration.
but Jonathan's wife is very upset and worried.
Why don't you just write an anonymous note and have done with it?
Jonathan, please. I don't mind hearing what he has to say. Don't worry.
I mind your hearing it. I mind on your behalf.
But I don't need looking after, thank you.
I don't know whether you've ever met Jonathan's wife.
Met her? To do what? Exchange recipes?
For goodness sake.
I'm simply trying to make clear the facts of the situation.
Would you like me to leave so that you two can have a cosy little chat?
Jonathan, don't be ridiculous. Look, it's best to get things sorted out. The truth's always the best.
Oh, God, and you a postgraduate student. He has no rights, you know. He's not a marriage guidance thing or even a marriage breakdown one. You don't have to take a blind bit of notice. He's just an interfering old fool.
Jonathan.
It's all right, Miss McKenna. I don't expect to be thanked for doing this.
Christ, he's going to bless us in a minute.
Janet, Jonathan's wife, is naturally very worried.
Mr. Johns, look, I don't mind discussing the situation with you.
I feel sick.
I don't think you're being very fair.
Really?
Why Jonathan's wife should have sent you here like this, I don't know. But in fact, she knows of my relationship with Jonathan and has previously been quite happy to accept it. And I might add that she's hardly been a model of faithfulness herself.
Young lady, do I understand you
I
correctly?
think we're all getting a little bit confused.
Well, tell him, Jonathan.
I'm afraid you've been misinformed, young lady.
Tell him about Janet.
My sister is a good mother and a good wife. She is certainly not happy about this situation. And I can only say how sorry I am that you've been led to believe otherwise.
You... What's the matter, Jonathan? Does nothing witty occur to you? Excuse me, Mr. Johns, I think I'd better leave now.
I'm sorry I've had to put you through all this.
It's all right, Mr. Johns. You haven't put me through anything.
No, congratulations.
I'm sorry, but I honestly believed I had to do that.
Yes, I believe you. Must be wonderful to be simple-minded.
I can't say I think any more highly of you for inventing malicious lies about Janet.
No, neither do I. But they made her happier.
Who?
Iris.
Well, are you still going on this weekend trip?
How the hell do I know? And you come charging in here like some kind of mad monk. Make a nice girl feel like a cheap tart and then ask what's happening next. I should think you won, if that's what you mean.
No. No, I don't mean that. Nobody wins an affair like this.
What a wealth of wisdom and experience lies behind that sad statement.
Anyway, she seemed a very self-assured young lady. I doubt whether anything I said could have had much effect on her.
You're too modest by far, Jane. These clever females are always more female than they are clever. Anyway, I'll let you know how it all comes out, shall I?
I think I'd better be going.
You're oversensitive, James. That's your trouble.
I hope there won't be any bitterness between us in the future. I haven't enjoyed this, you know.
I accept your plea of insanity or whatever it is.
I'll find my own way out.
Perhaps one of the most interesting problems of ethics is that posed by the person who asks, why should I be moral at all? And rather like a child who says, I'm not playing. This person is not questioning our system of morality or trying to change it, but simply opting out. Well, this stepping aside, this stepping outside of society's rules can have its advantages and...
Don't let me interrupt the lecture, Professor.
I'm not sure that I have anything to say anymore that's worth listening to.
I don't mind listening.
This stepping outside of society's rules can have both its advantages and disadvantages. The amoralist will always act just as it suits him. A situation which allows him to take advantage of other morally conventional members of society. How then are we to answer his question? Why should I be moral?